So rapper Lil Durk was arrested on October 25th of 2024. And that news led me to think about something. And I can't remember where I heard this quote, but it went something like, rather than to take a person's freedom, it's a much better approach and strategy to have them give it to you. And with the election coming up and all of these things that's happening right now in the media happening kind of at the same time, it's a big opportunity to push the culture in a more productive direction, because things are going back to the way they were, just mainly the promotion of ignorance as a virtue in our culture. And I think what it mainly comes from is a lack of information and education that we have on the world that we live in and the systems that we live in, and how controlling large groups of people, their beliefs, actions, activities, isn't as difficult as we think. And I think we're witnessing that in a multitude of ways, and a lot of people have fallen under the spell of lifestyles and images that they know nothing about. And more, it is being proven that ignorance is bliss until it is not. Let's get into it. So with the recent arrest of Lil Durk and the kind of slew of arrests of rappers, big name hip hop or rap music, let me say it right, big name rap music artists, entertainers, record execs, etc., right? Over the past few years, and especially here in 2024, with Diddy being arrested, now Lil Durk has been arrested. There's other big news that's happened. There's a lot of smoke, you know what I'm saying? Especially with the Diddy arrest, there's a lot of names attached to what may come down as a lot of indictments in that case alone. And I think what's happening, or at least the way I see it is, reality is starting to set in with not only the entertainers, but the fan bases for sure. Now, I think with the entertainers, they know more than we understand that they know as far as the situations that they're in. I'm trying to speak carefully about other people's real life situations, right? But I more want to talk about how we get here and how we got here, right? If we look at hip hop and its representation, hip hop started as just really kids from the street speaking about their life and their life experience. The very start was about maybe sort of a rallying call or a cry for something to be done about the conditions that they grew up in and lived in, right? It quickly turned into, once people started making money, bragging about their money, it continued to talk about the street life, right? Which was in parts violent and criminal, right? Because poor people, crime tends to follow poor people wherever they go. Where there's a lack of resources, all options are open, so to speak. Let's just put it that way. But we live in a time now where hip hop is supposed to be a very lucrative endeavor, right? And career. If you're a rapper, you're supposed to be able to make a lot of money, especially if you're a popular rapper, right? So what's with all the criminality? And we have different types of crimes. If we just speak on the biggest cases in hip hop right now, which is Young Thug, which has been going on for 2 years now, Lil Durk, Diddy, right? Different types of crimes, but all extremely serious, right? And I want to talk about this. I want to approach this from a different way, from a different viewpoint, as I already kind of am, but let me get right to the point. We call it the trap, right? Or trapping. A phrase coined by Outkast, I believe, as I always mention in the record, Spodiote, Dopalicious, Cadillac Angels, that was on Aquemini, I believe, that album. Matter of fact, I'll put a link of that song above. So if you're a young person, you never heard that song, or if you heard the song, you don't remember Big Boy's part in the song, go back and listen to it again, because I don't think we really heard him, right? Here's the thing. I am older. I grew up mostly throughout the 90s, right? And I saw the transition of the real hood to what is now the kind of commercialized fake hood, right? As I was growing up, resources, jobs, things like that, they weren't plentiful, right? You know, that transition between the 80s and the 90s, the crack era, there are a lot of factory jobs and things like that that closed, hence leading to the projects becoming crime ridden. You can go watch movies like New Jack City and Boys in the Hood. And speaking of Boys in the Hood, I can remember this just to show the difference in mindset from then and now. Now, I've never been a gang member or any of that, neutron all day, right? And I grew up in Chicago. So I understand the basis of where Lil Durk and just the permeation, because most of the gangs did originate in Chicago. So I understand that whole mindset as far as the street goes, period. And really the simple fact of the matter is the circumstances under which, whether it be trapping, whether it be gang culture, existed and originated, don't really exist now today. There's not a lot of money in any kind of criminal behavior. You know, what you all think is a lot of money, like y'all are using credit and things like that. Like that didn't exist on the street. When nobody getting no credit cards and all of that. And y'all know what I'm referring to as far as the Durk case goes. You couldn't do that. Everything was cash, money, because it was that much money in that kind of lifestyle. That doesn't exist anymore. And for a while, you know, the hip hop culture especially kind of got away from that a little bit, right? But then it resurfaced. And we will have to wonder how and why it resurfaced. I'm gonna show a couple of charts here as far as crime and criminality, because I know younger people listen to this who especially think they in the streets real tough, and they'll say, "Oh, we have it just as hard." No, you don't, and you don't understand how much crime there was in the 90s, in the 80s. There was a lot. Okay, so if we just look at this chart, right? Murders per year in the 10 largest U.S. cities. Of course, New York being at the top, Los Angeles, Chicago. Then we get to Houston, Dallas, Philadelphia, San Antonio, San Diego, Phoenix, Las Vegas. Okay, if we look, New York is the chart at the very top. If we look at 1990, around 91, 92, between 90 and 95, there, look at how that chart is way up there, then it drops way down. Now, much of that has to do with gun control laws. Some of it has to do with the murder of Notorious B.I.G. and Tupac. If you look around 95, 96, right? It continued to drop down, but most of that has to do with laws. And, you know, other things, education, that helped a little bit, but there wasn't a big increase in that. It was more the gun control laws, things like that, and also a change in the approach by law enforcement. Okay, this is Bill Clinton's era, 3 strikes and you're out. A lot of people went to jail and stayed. But as you can see, overall from 1985 to 2015, every city pretty much, with the exception of, I think, Phoenix and Vegas down there at the bottom, at the very bottom, every city went down by quite a bit, right? Especially during the time of Tupac's murder. I want to show LA's chart right quick. And this is a chart that shows rate of gang-related homicides in LA from 89 to 2007. If you see, the biggest drop was when? 95, 96, right? And 97, I believe, was the lowest point. 96, 97 was the lowest point. And then it slowly, by 2002, it was all the way back up, right? And now then it went to even greater heights than it had been in the 80s and 90s. So that shows the impact that the culture and hip hop and music and what happens in the culture can have on the activity in the streets and the mindset of the youth in the streets or the people committing the crimes in the streets. Now, I'm not going to say laws and gun control didn't play a part, but if you look at it, by the time you get to 2005, 2006, 2007, the crime rates are shooting through the roof again, the gang-related crime rates, right? Now, if you look at Chicago, you see similarly the same thing, right? Around the middle part there, 96, you see the crime rates drop all the way to 2000, 2001. Then they pick back up, right? Then Obama gets in office, they go all the way down, big downturn. Then the regression comes in 2016. They go back up almost to where they were during the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Again, but coupled with whoever was in presidential office, you have the promotion of drill music, right? And if you look at what Don't Like came out in 2012, if you look at 2012, there's a spike. That coincided with the kind of the start of drill music, right? Even though it went down for a couple years there, but then it got out of control in 2016 and it's been up there ever since. And that music has become more and more popular, right? But the question is, why is the music being pushed so hard when the conditions of street life or life in the inner city, and also just because we in the technological age, there's a lot more options for people to turn to besides being criminals. What I'm saying is the so-called criminal element of whether it be hip hop and just the street in general is being propped up by who. That's for everybody, to kind of figure out and decide, right? I'm not gonna make any allegations, especially towards the government or anything, or law enforcement or anything like that. But somebody's propping it up. Somebody's allowing it to happen until they stop allowing it to happen. The level to which we are surveilled really could prevent a lot of things that happen, right? Go back to George W. Bush and the Homeland Security Act. If you never read through that, everyone should read through it because we've kind of been, as a society, surveilled since then. So people having secret cameras and freak off parties and things like that attached to security systems that have Wi-Fi, and then people pretending like it was a secret. If you know, that's not the case. Can't be the case. So this idea that there's this secret criminal element that nobody knows about or that the authorities can't get ahead of, that comes from ignorance in the people who are participating in it, to think that they're getting away with something. Or I really don't know. I really don't know the reasoning for thinking you can be a trapper or a D-boy in today's society. You just really can't, and not get caught. You're going to jail. Just bottom line, period, point blank. To be a black man or a person of an American of African descent, and to commit crimes on camera and somehow be foolish enough to think that it will go away or you will get away with it, just shows us that, again, like I said in the beginning, ignorance is bliss, and we just don't have enough information, enough historical information about where we're from and where we live to understand that will never be on the table. So when we express ourselves through our music, it should be a little more informative about how to get through things. That's why I like Kendrick Lamar as an artist. I'm going to do an album review of Tyler, the Creator's Chromacopia, where he's just talking about life. And that leads me to pointing out that the messaging in hip hop needs to really start to reflect real life again, not fairy tale drug raps or fairy tale crime raps, which was brought in really, or popularized more by the Jay-Z's and the Rick Rosses and that whole era there. Just did not do a good service to people, because first of all, I think that most of the people who were rapping, of course, did not live that life, because most of the people who are from the street for real don't promote it as though it's a fun time, because it's not. And a lot of journalists have taken to, with the shame type situation to the people involved in some of these things. And if you're from the street for real, you realize some people are raised in this environment and they don't really know anything else, and they don't even really see it as being very wrong. My problem is when I see people who are not from it participate in it, and who are not bred to be a certain kind of way fall into it because it's painted as being cool or popular or the thing to do, right? Is to get into all of these crazy criminal behaviors that Diddy, that Durk, that all these people are alleged to be involved in. And I said alleged to be involved in because nobody's been convicted of anything yet. But at the same time, the fact that anybody who's rich is around this kind of behavior makes zero street sense. Zero. This is just not something you do once you get this kind of legitimate money. It's not, right? So With the individuals, that may be a thing where they just don't know any better. But the ancillary people, the people who are, let's be honest, we're too entertained by this. But these are real bullets and real lives being lost and things like that. This is not entertainment. And it's not really, I've never understood why people find it so entertaining in music. You know what I'm saying? People ask a lot of times about culture vultures and why they feel so comfortable, right, in hip hop sometimes. And you have to look at, well, just because a person is of a different race or of a different background doesn't mean that they're automatically a culture vulture. And just because you are of the same race of most of the people participating or rapping or whatever, doesn't mean that you're not. Because if you are pretending to know about the hood and you're not from it, you are really the problem. I can quote Kendrick Lamar twice. The rapper part, I hate when a rapper talk about guns and somebody dies, they turn into nuns, right? The Euphoria line. And the whole song, you ain't got to lie to kick it. Because we have a lot of people lying to kick it, especially on the internet. I've had people come in my comments and lie about being a part of when I did the video on LL's song, Saturday Night Special. And they want to lie about, we all saw the movie Paid in Full. And it's a lot of Negroes in the comments who want to act like they was in the street when the actual, Alpo, Rich Porter and all those people were actually in the street in Harlem. And say, oh, you don't know what you're talking about because he talking about Poe because I was out there. Snitching on yourself in YouTube comments, nobody does that. Okay, that's from that. Nobody has time to be in YouTube comments trying to prove who and what they were and what they did. That's silly nerd type stuff. And just because you talk with slang or you don't know how to speak English properly, and I do, doesn't mean that you know anything about the street. And definitely not anything more than I do or any other people who are on YouTube and in social media trying to push the culture away from that experience, because we understand that's not the experience that our youth should be looking forward to and going through and looking up to, for sure. So this is really part of letting the party die, because it's not just the party part. It's also the so-called hustling part, so-called criminality part, so-called fantasy of being a drug dealer and then one day becoming a billionaire. Shout out to Jay-Z. That's fantasy bullshit. I'm just going to, I normally don't curse, but we're going to keep it real for a second. And we have to understand that all of those things are a trap. Okay? Your rap career is a trap if you don't monitor it correctly and move through it correctly. If you out here letting somebody getting you wild and into using drugs and, oh, it's okay, we rich, we can get away with it, that's nonsense. And I've been showing images of Vlad and Adam 22, the ops and people that when I was growing up, there's no way anybody from the street is even talking to these people at all, looking at them twice, other than, never mind that. But y'all are going on platforms with these funny looking dudes, snitching on yourself. And you want to believe that there's some kind of street involved in your thought process? Like, we have to understand that lifestyle has been over. It's been over for over almost 2 decades, just to be totally honest. Okay? There's too much opportunity with the internet, with technology. Just all the information you need in the world is at your fingertips. Being a part and trying to seem like, I know the lames made television criminality cool, right? And I know it's promoted in the movies and all of those things, right? But wake up. That's not the world we live in, okay? That's a world that most of you all were not born into unless you're 40 years old or so. And for my fellas out there and ladies, but mostly for the fellas out there, if you weren't outside then, there's no reason to pretend that you were. Okay? Show us who you are today. Get some money today, professionally, somewhere. All right? Because right now we have a culture full of send-offs. And we just have to admit that that's what it is. And now they're coming to get the people that they set up, basically. They set people up with careers just so they can take them down in front of you. if we really paying attention to what's happening. And we as the fan base and as the culture, right? As the listener, as the curators of what is actually cool and who's delivering the right message, we have to take our part in being responsible for some of this. Because really, some of these people shouldn't have been in the positions that they were, as far as being propped up as examples of who to be, especially in the case of Diddy. You know, if we knew more about money, if we knew more about finance, if we knew more about the system that we live in, you would know that certain people are being controlled, and those are not the people we should be taking as examples and leaders in our community. They're just not. They don't know enough. They don't have enough proof of who they are. You know what I'm saying? Real proof. I'm not talking about a television show or anything like that. I'm talking about who the person is, looking up their finances, looking up their investments, looking at the companies that they invest in, looking at how much stake they actually own in those companies they so-called are invested in or are part owners in, all of these things, man. So, you know, our generation, we grown-ups, so we don't have no excuse, okay? If you over 30, you really ain't got no excuse to be falling for nonsense and being shocked that certain people really ain't got a lot of money like they claim that they have, you know? So that's it, man. I'm gonna end it right there. What's next is more people are gonna fall, right? Because they've been set up too. And we all just have to look in the mirror and really take our part, because we all have a voice on social media. We have to take our responsibility and our part and our power in directing the culture in the right direction. And I see that happening, and I'm proud that it's happening. Let's continue to do that. Let's not fall back. We don't have to be judgmental and all that kind of thing. We can have our fun too, but let's make sure for the most part we being responsible. Thank y'all for watching. As always, hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed. Share the video, tell a friend to tell a friend, and as always, we out.